When I got into nursing, I burned out very quickly, like just overworked myself. Wasn't really prepared for the demand that nursing was going to take.
I was working like 60 hours a week. I had 2 jobs, and I think the realization for me didn't come until much later.
I always knew I wanted to have some sort of business or do something outside of nursing. I just didn't know what it was. One of the first things we did was had a SEO business, search engine optimization, and would literally go around Vallejo and knock on dentist doors and other business doors and try to pitch the idea that, hey, have you ever thought of using SEO? I even tried writing a book one time about how to, helping nurses find jobs.
Welcome to the Investing RN podcast. Today we are with James and Czarina, which we just found out is a Russian name from the Philippines, or Filipino name from Russia. I don't know how it works out, but yeah, welcome to the show today. It's we're excited to talk to you guys. I don't know, have we interviewed a couple yet?
I don't think so.
We're Josh and I are usually the couple being interviewed, so this is a change for us.
What? That's
not really.
What I meant to say.
I mean, like the two of us are like the two being interviewed by someone, but we haven't actually interviewed two people. So this is cool. This is a first, and yeah. So usually we start off just talking about how you got into nursing. I don't want to say it, but I think it's pretty obvious how Czarina got into it. But we'll start with James.
Well, believe it or not, I am half Filipino.
Oh, well, there you go. So we can just skip this part.
Yeah. Well, how I got started, I mean, you come from a Filipino background, and you kind of have, it's either you go a medical route, you go an engineering route. In my case, I had a third option. My mom wanted me to be a priest. She gave me that option. But they don't want to do that. They don't want to go engineering. So I kind of just fell into the medical route. Wanted to be a doctor originally, and didn't want to go through all that schooling. So decided to get into nursing. And, that's how I started. A lot of family influence, growing up in the Bay Area in California, there's a lot of very diverse, but I had a lot of Filipino friends that also kind of influenced me to get into the medical field. And that's essentially how I got started, So, yeah.
You're not from Vallejo, are you?
I am.
Oh, I knew it.
Filipinos.
So I live in Napa right now, but I went to school up here, so I did clinicals in Vallejo. At the Kaiser. Yeah, at Kaiser.
Yeah.
The Filipino. Yeah, the Filipino
nurses. As soon as I said it's pretty diverse, you already kind of knew.
Yeah. The Filipino nurses there called me Brother Jonas because I had long hair.
Okay.
So all right, well, so that's James. So Czarina, how did you get into it?
You guys already know the question when I was growing up is you could be anything you want to be. Now, what kind of nurse do you want to be? Right? And I fell into NICU nursing. But funny enough, you guys, me and James actually met in nursing school. So first month of nursing school, it's slim pickings for the women. There was only 5 guys in the class. James had a feast, right? So, but I consider him being the lucky one because,
obviously.
Yeah. Can't argue with that.
So you guys are both going to school in the Bay Area, I assume?
Samuel Merritt University.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And now are you guys, so you did NICU, James, what unit did you get into?
I worked in telemetry and step down. But I also did other things like worked in the cardiology clinics. I actually was a school nurse before leaving nursing altogether.
Nice.
So I did all kinds of, different routes, different paths of nursing.
Yeah, cool.
All right, well, you just gave a huge spoiler. You're out of nursing. That's kind of the point of this podcast, is to create side hustles, income. I think eventually, I mean, the thought is that you'll stay in nursing and then like just make a lot of money outside of it. But I think at some point everybody's going to leave if you're making enough money. So how did you set yourself up for that? And I guess maybe I shouldn't jump all the way to that yet. But what was the first thoughts that you might want to do something outside of nursing?
I think the first thoughts came actually when I was still in undergrad and going through nursing school. I always knew I wanted to have some sort of business or do something outside of nursing. I just didn't know what it was. And then getting into nursing, just going through, when I got into nursing, I burned out very quickly, like just overworked myself, wasn't really prepared for the demand that nursing was going to take, physically, mentally, emotionally, and didn't really have the best ways of like coping. And just started at that time. That's when I started looking at different things, like what can I do outside of nursing. Is there something that can eventually take me out of it, where I can replace the income and I can just do something else, right? And that's kind of where it started. I didn't quite know what it was going to be. I think now most people can probably guess based on our Instagram handle that it's in finance. But yeah, that's kind of how it started.
I guess going back, so you said you were burnt out. But you said it sounded like it was more self-inflicted. Like, was that just picking up too many shifts or what?
I think combination of both. Coming out of nursing school, I wanted to really just pay down my student loans. So as many shifts as I can work. Nurses are giving away their shifts. Yeah, I'll pick it up. Let me work. But then you combine that with the fact that I started learning that the hospital is very a lot of politics in the hospital, right? A lot of times, and I don't know how other hospitals are, but at least the ones I worked for felt like they didn't really have the nurses' best interests, and didn't really care for. I wouldn't say didn't care for the well-being, but
It wasn't a priority.
yeah, it didn't seem like it was a priority, right? And because of that, politics and just working crazy hours, not feeling appreciated as a nurse, right? I felt underappreciated, undervalued. Even out here in the Bay Area making good money, I still felt underpaid, right? And just all those factors combined kind of, ultimately led me to the decision that I wanted to find something outside.
So I guess at the same time you were in the NICU, Czarina, and were you experiencing something similar?
No, it was crazy because I'm telling you guys, I loved my job. So loved, right? Loved it. I was like, I'm gonna be flight nurse, ALS nurse, gonna do all these things, right? And I think for me, when you're in your early 20s and you have all this energy, you're working 3 days a week. I mean, what do you do with the rest of the weeks, right? Or the days. So coming from the healthcare background that I have as my family, everyone's like, oh, you're here. Why don't you go pick up another job? You are young, you've got all the energy in the world. Go milk your body out with the money that you can make, right? And I was working 6 days a week, and I was working like 60 hours a week. I had two jobs, and I think the realization for me didn't come until much later when I started looking at everyone else around me, when it would kind of be a trophy. Oh, I've been working two jobs for the last 20 years kind of deal. And I'm like looking at that, and I didn't want that to be my future. The way I looked at working the two jobs was, it was a temporary thing. Let us just build our wealth, get that situated, and maybe later on when we have kids drop down. But then also looking at the money that we were making, if I dropped down, obviously the money was going to go down if we didn't have anything else. So that was also a sacrifice. That was also a something that I didn't want to give up. So that's when the idea of entrepreneurship also started coming into my mind, where I'm like, okay, I don't want to give up the income, but I also know that I want time.
Yeah.
Right. Especially now having a child, it's helped us a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So who, I guess, which one of the two of you was the first one to start looking elsewhere, and who was the real, or was it a team effort?
That's it. Yeah.
He was done. Sick of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So you were the one, and then you started what? You just started researching different things. How did you guys end up where you
Yeah, I
are?
mean, just tried doing different things, just was open-minded and just, like for example, I started doing, going to more networking events, right? Just trying to figure out and see what other people are doing and get ideas and see like, okay, is that something that I feel I can pursue, right? Like one of the first things we did was had a SEO business, search engine optimization, right? And would literally go around Vallejo and knock on dentist doors and other business doors and try to pitch the idea that, hey, have you ever thought of using SEO, right, for your business to help, grow it, right, market. So things like that, right? And even like Amazon, right? Like Amazon FBA and trying to sell the e-commerce. And I would make these like donut walls and try to rent them out to people that are like having parties and weddings or baby showers or whatever it may be. So just trying different things, and I after all of that, a lot of trial and error, a lot of failures, a lot of learning lessons, not really failures, but ultimately stumbled into finance, right? And that's kind of that was probably like I'd say that was maybe like a 4-year journey, just going through those things, right? Just trying to figure out ways, how can we make income outside of bedside or outside of nursing,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
And how far into your nursing career was that?
I would say after probably a year, because it was when I started my second nursing job that I actually actually when I first started nursing, that's when I was already trying to go to like networking events and stuff, trying to learn. I didn't really start taking action till probably a year into nursing, where I actually like started, uh, you know, dabbling into different things, right? I even tried writing a book one time and
Oh yeah.
about how to helping nurses find jobs, because at the time there was like such a huge nursing job shortage.
Yeah.
People were having such a hard time trying to find jobs, and I remember writing a book like, hey, here's how to do your resume, and just all kinds of things, right? Interviewing. And so like telling you just so many
Anything and
things.
everything just to get out.
Yeah.
Really, it was what it was.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because it was only a year into it, so it's like it's kind of hard to say because I definitely think you guys being in California, we've talked to people that have worked in a lot of different states where the conditions aren't necessarily ideal. I 100% agree with you though about the politics. Like I don't mind working hard, I don't mind working a lot or whatever, but the politics more than anything I think is what dragged me down in a lot of, especially the bigger hospitals. But it seems like, and maybe like, do you agree that some of the issues I think that nurses have with burnout are kind of self-inflicted, and maybe that culture, like you were saying, Czarina, of this like this like pushing and like people being like their identity being how many shifts they work? Because I've talked to so many people, it's like, oh, I was working night shift at one place and day shift at somewhere else, and I'm just like, yeah, cool, like not really looking for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but do you think it's that the culture, or do you think it's more the hospitals,
I
or
think it's
both?
a combination of both. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
there's a system, problem, and then also think that there's, with the nurses in general, right? Like um, I see, at least my experience working as a nurse, a lot of times it was very clicky, or it's like nurses are just looking out for themselves. It's not very supportive. um and just seeing things like that, right? Or like what Zarina saying, how it's people compete of like how many hours one person's working, and stuff like that,
It's
right?
not healthy.
It's not healthy. There's not the ideal teamwork on the unit, right? You see someone drowning, and sometimes I'd be drowning at work, and I wish a coworker would, they see me drowning, but they don't offer a hand, right? And they're at the nurse's station just kind of hanging out, right? But I was the nurse that always like, hey, I see you drowning. Like, what can I help you with, right? Like, can I pass your meds, or what do you, just simple things like that. Who needs ice, right? Which one of your patients asking for ice? Like,
Yeah.
I'll do that stuff. But so I think it's a combination of both,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So I don't know. You think it's
So
both?
Yeah, absolutely. But also, a lot of nurses, I think it's also just not knowing what you want.
Hmm.
Because I know that a lot of nurses, obviously, you want to have time freedom, you want to have flexibility, you want to have all these things. But if the only thing that you know is the job, then that's the only thing you're gonna do. So I think also there's a lack of the education on what the resources are out there, or maybe even just the lack of wanting to take the risk.
Hmm.
You know,
yeah,
it's just a lot of maybe the informational gap. Because if that's all you know, that's all you know. That's all you're gonna do.
and not even really knowing what you want. Also, like I mean, you kind of just said that Actually, I think I just repeated exactly what you said.
All good.
But no, my point was that like
Nailed it.
you think you know what you want, but then you get what you thought you wanted, and you don't want that. So it's kind of like your mind changes so often.
100%.
Yeah.
That was different from what you just
That
said.
That
Sure.
was profound.
I'll give it to you.
Thanks. Okay, so you guys are in finance now, and that's a pretty broad term. So what does that mean, I guess, to somebody who's not actually in finance? Because that could mean so many different things.
Yeah. You want to answer that?
Yeah, I mean, our focus really is just financial education because you look at a lot of the nurses, especially in the Bay Area. This is the very small part of the world really where nurses make, to at least to everyone else, they make a crazy amount, but obviously with cost of living, that's a different story. But it's the one place in the world where you can work 3 shifts and clear 200,000. You know what I mean? But it's also a place where we found that the education and financial education is not there, right? So mine and James's focus, when we came into this industry, we first came in just really wanting to be able to learn because, like we said earlier, we were trying to do anything and everything to get out of nursing, but we understood that if we were going to make some sort of changes, it included our finances, right? Whether one was going to go to school, one was going to start a business, it was going to affect our finances. So when we came into this industry first as clients, we came to the realization that the answer that we've been looking for was right in front of our faces, and we had to jump in first. We had to be the people to learn it first, and realizing it that, oh my God, everyone else around us is having this problem, that they don't understand what to do with their money, that nurses who make 200,000 should not be having to worry about the next overtime shift. Nurses who are making, crazy amounts of money, maybe to the eyes of other people, right, should not be worrying about when the next extra shift is going to come or if it's going to be there. So in what we do as far as our approach in financial education is understanding people's financial foundation so that they don't have to worry about those types of things, because we know that is such a huge problem for a lot of nurses. So I hope that does that answer the question.
Yeah, and so how does that, I guess, because you guys are both out of nursing, so how does that replace 2 nursing salaries in the Bay Area where you can pull 200,000?
Yeah. So for us, how we start making money in our business. So everything we do for people is free, right? And I think this is kind of what do they call it? Like an oxymoron, right? Where like you look at the traditional industry, financial industry, you know, people pay per hour to consult with, let's say, a financial advisor, right? Or they go into a financial institution and they have to pay for the services, right? For us, all of that, what somewhat, an advisor would typically charge, like we provide all that same stuff for free, right? The financial education, the financial planning, the coming up with the strategies. And how we get paid is when we work with, you could think of us as like brokers, right? There's different companies and providers that we partner with and work with. And depending on what company is most ideal for a client's situation or what they're looking to accomplish or what they're looking to do, let's say we opened up a plan with that company and that's who ends up paying us. So nothing comes out of the client's pockets, right? They don't pay us anything. It's the company that we end up doing the business with. That's who ends up paying us. Is that right? So that's how we get paid.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And can, start replacing, the income, like you said.
Okay.
And these, what types of companies are these?
Like financial institutions, like big name companies, like maybe you've heard of like Nationwide, right? Pac Life, Prudential, Transamerica, like big companies like that, right? Big name companies like that.
Okay, so you guys don't do any actual selling of any products. You guys just kind of refer and educate, is what it sounds like.
Both. I mean, both, right? Like, so we can refer, or we can be the ones that actually set up the plans, where we are the agents on those whatever policies, the plans, programs, whatever it is. So we can refer, but we can also be the ones offering it as well.
And what was your introduction to this? Did you guys come in? I think you said you came in as clients initially.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And was it a nurse that you were dealing with at the time?
No, it was a good friend of mine. It was during open enrollment. Funny story, I'll just tell it. Okay. So 5 years ago, actually, Life Insurance Awareness Month is right now. Okay. So, which also means that open enrollment is coming. So at that time, I had just gotten a job at a big hospital. And I said, okay, if we're going to make all these changes in our lives, someone wants to go back to school, someone wants to start a business, we got to figure out our finances. Also understand our benefits, right? Because nobody ever explains that to you. And so I knew that one of my good friends was already in the industry for quite some time. And I said, okay, I think it's time to really sit down with him and understand all these things. And so we sat down with him. At that time, really, James did not want to do any sitting down. He was like, I'm going to Google this thing and do it on my own. And I think we should be good. And I said, no, I think we need a real person to tell us, because we've been doing the same thing for 5 years and nothing has changed. And we had no idea, right? If we're going to spend the next, I don't know, 40 years of our lives figuring out finances, it's just going to go in circles, right? So we reached out to my friend. James was absolutely trying to make all kinds of excuses to not go to that meeting. And I said, we're going to have a nice dinner after. And that's how I bribed him to come. Okay. So we had a nice dinner after. But really, what struck us in that meeting was, instead of our friend kind of just selling us things, the big thing in that was just, I felt as if this person was just educating me truly. And so that's what really started us in thinking about, okay, obviously I wanted to be a client to somebody who's just educated. I don't want to feel, in any time that you're buying anything, you don't want to feel like someone's selling it to you. You want to feel like you need it, that you're being educated and that's going to be good for you. That's how we felt. That's why we jumped in. And then we looking at, again, how many nurses needed to be educated on this. That's how we finally made the decision. Okay, this is something that maybe we can do too.
Yeah, it seems like in today's day and age, everybody's always trying to make a sale. And to your point, like as soon as somebody kind of gives me like a whiff of like maybe trying to sell me something, I tune out everything else that they say. So it has to come from a different place. It can't be at strictly like a salesman position.
But I think that perspective that you had, James, is pretty common, especially among men. Like I think men are always like, with my wife, it's always like, oh, we should do this, and I'm like, oh yeah, I could do that, I could figure that out.
Yeah,
So,
right.
it's like
very macho.
yeah. And women are usually a lot more like willing to just like go spend the money.
Yeah.
But so how do you guys overcome that now in your own practice?
How we overcome
just like I guess the doubt and hesitation that people might have to get involved with somebody like you.
Oh yeah, I mean, for me, I think I don't know, like when we sit down with with a nurse, like for example, sat down with some potential clients yesterday, right? And I think that what I found is that if we take that approach, like Czarina's saying, where we're just sitting down and we're providing value, we're educating. Like we have some new agents that have come on board with us, also have nursing backgrounds, and we're like, hey, who's someone that you want to be able to share this information with? Like you saw so much value in what we shared with you, right? And in terms of the concepts, in terms of the education, who's someone that you would want to be able to share that knowledge with? Right. And they start listing people. Oh, my sister, my cousin, one of my best friend. And we sit down with them and we provide them the same value, the same concepts. And what ends up happening, we don't have any intention in trying to make that person a client, but because they have, they found so much value in what we shared, they're the ones that come to us, and it's not even like, they want to do business with us. Right. So I don't know if I've really experienced that where people have the doubt, because what I find is if we just provide the value for them, like they want to, it builds a sense of trust where like, okay, this person, wants to, has my best interest at heart.
Yeah.
Right. And we're able to help them.
It's true.
Yeah, and where does that conversation usually start?
Well, I was gonna say, and I think it's the same thing you're trying to ask, is like, what's like the main thing that you guys see that people are struggling with? Is that what you're kind of saying, Josh?
The main people are, yeah. I mean, what people struggle with really is just the lack of the financial literacy, right? Like how um you guys asked how, how we ended up getting started, right? Or what made us want to get started in this industry. What made me want to get started is when we sat down with he's both of our friends now, right? It's like I didn't want to sit down with him at first, but now he's one of my closest friends. But when he shared with us just the financial literacy, the financial education, I was sitting there, I'm like, man, there's so many nurses, so many of my own colleagues that would love this information. They would find so much value in this stuff because I know for a fact they don't know these things, right? Because working as a nurse, I'm sitting there and I'm like, I see coworkers that are 65, 70 years old and they're still working bedside. And they're the ones that are typically giving people the financial advice, right? They're the ones telling you, oh, go max out your 401 or put money into this and buy this and buy that. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, well, if you did all that and you're still working at 65, like, is that really the best thing to do? Like, I don't want to be in your position, right? I want to have the opportunity to retire early. So, I mean, to make a long answer short, I think it's just the lack of the financial literacy, right? Not understanding. So where that conversation begins, I mean, it could just begin as a simple thing as like, hey, what are you doing with your retirement? Right? What's your strategy for your retirement? Do you have are you confident with what you're currently doing is going to get you to where you want to be in the next 10, 15, 20 years? Right? And then from there it just starts the conversation where we can sit down and then really share the education. Right?
Yeah.
I agree.
So
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say a lot of people have a lot of money in different places, right? It's like when you're trying to build a house, you have like your plumbing here, your electricity here, your foundation here. You have all the good pieces. But I think the problem that we're seeing is they don't know how to put it together strategically, right? It's just like when you're building a house, if it doesn't matter how good all these pieces are, if you don't know how to put them together, they're just pieces. So what we do is we look at it in a very cohesive way. We look at it in a very what's the word? It'll come back to me. But anyway, we look at it overall, holistic way. Thank you. Right? Kind of like we do with our patients. You're not just looking at your patient just at the eyes, right? You're looking at them from head to toe and what's going on. And so we do the same approach. We essentially create care plans for people. We assess everything from head to toe, everything that's going in and out. And we're really not in the position, we're not in the business to, if it works, then leave it alone, right? We're not in the position to mess anything up that's good. It's the same thing we do as nurses, right? I'm not going to tell somebody to take cancer meds if they don't have cancer, right? So to me, it's just looking at, okay, then if it's good, we leave it alone. But if there's places where it can be improved, then we look at that. And we do a lot of goal setting. We do a lot of understanding what is the need versus just throwing out plans at people that don't make any sense.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I would argue as an ER nurse that I only look at what they came in for. So if they came in for an eye thing, I don't look at anything else.
Oh man.
Yeah, see, you're talking to ICU nurse.
Finger laceration. I could literally just like have their finger like just sticking out, and that's all I would treat. Yeah, through a window. I don't need to see the rest of you. We'll just treat that. But
we make fun of each other all the time. I was ICU nurse also.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if I stuck in nursing, that's my kind of nursing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, just very focused.
Yeah.
I know Josh likes to get into the numbers, so I don't know if I mean I am curious too, because it's like you guys mentioned. I mean, now I'm in Northern California. I've worked up here before, and I know how much nurses are making up in Northern California. So for you guys to both leave that kind of income, I mean, what was that like? How long did it take for you guys to do that? And how did you, had you replaced your income when you guys left?
When I decided to leave nursing, believe it or not, we weren't really making money in business yet. We probably made maybe a couple thousand, 3,000 in business when I decided to leave. Um, and so yeah, we didn't make money right away. Took time. I would say within the first year of being full time in business, was able to replace my income that I was making as a nurse. And then over the last, I'd say even just the last 12 months is really when we started gaining a lot of steam, a lot of momentum, where we've been able to, like Czarina's really been able to drop down hours, right? Like she still works per diem, but she goes from working two jobs when we first started in business, you know, 4 days a week, 12-hour shifts, to now she works 6 days in a month, right? So just, you know, that it took a while, right? Because we've been in business going on 5 years, and it's actually going to be the 5 year anniversary this month. Yeah, being in business.
Yeah. But I'm looking at that in a way that, it's crazy. I'll just share a quick story. Recently I was talking to a coworker of mine who had been at the job that I'm at for 20 years now, right? And I'm at that job now for 5. And she was kind of curious about what my hourly was, and she told me what her hourly was. And believe it or not, 15-year difference was only like $10-12 an hour difference. And maybe to some people it's a lot, it's good. I mean, but to me, I'm looking at that if I stayed continuing to do what we were doing, I think that was the biggest decision maker when at first, when I was scared that James was leaving nursing. But just kind of looking at what's ahead, if James stayed in nursing, and if I stayed working the 6 days a week or whatever, then there wasn't going to be a big difference in pay, right? But jumping into entrepreneurship, I think what a lot of people find so scary about it is because in entrepreneurship, whether you do well or you don't, it's all on you, you know? And there's no one else to look around at. It's you. And so I think, but to us, to me, I think that's so appealing because you find out a lot about yourself. You found a lot about the growth that you can have as an individual. And really, the income shows. Your growth will show in the income that you have.
In healthcare, in most healthcare fields, there's a ceiling, and you know pretty close to what the ceiling's going to be when you first start. And that was one thing with me, is like in entrepreneurship, there's no ceiling. But whether it's ER nursing, ICU nursing, or CRNA, what I do now, like you can basically see the ceiling, and I didn't really like that thought.
That's how I really when I decided, when I said, you know, we weren't really making money in business, but why I've decided to take that leap, because exactly what you're saying is, you know, there's a ceiling to it. Like I looked at it at the time, we're nurses for 5 years. We hit a point where it wasn't going to get much better, right? Like we hit, you know, our lifestyle was like what it was going to be, no matter how long we spend in nursing, right? And if we worked another 5 years, it's going to be the same thing 5 years down the line. But 5 years dedicated to business, where you put the same amount of time and energy and effort into it, like you said, there's no ceilings, right? Like lifestyle could look completely different, right? And that's what really helped me make the decision to take that leap, even if I wasn't sure if we were gonna, you know, be able to replace the income. But I just had a sense of, you know, that we could make it work.
I think the other thing too is like what you were saying about the nurses who just sit there and don't help out and all that. Like they're getting paid as much, if not more, than you sometimes. And so
I
it's like
know.
there's like the business. It's like your hard work does pay off. Like it's all on you, which if you're a go getter is a great thing. So I mean, it's definitely just the reward is there if you're willing to work hard for it. But have you guys? I mean, I know Serena's still working as a nurse. Do you keep your license current, James?
My license is still current. Yeah, it's still active, but haven't worked as a nurse since 2020.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
You missed the whole COVID, huh?
Man, I left right when like COVID hit. So like I left at like the perfect time. I know that was a hard time for nurses, and I just couldn't imagine working through that.
Believe it or not, that That's actually when our business boomed.
People are making a ton of money then and probably didn't know what to do with it.
Exactly. Right. That was when, and if it wasn't for him leaving nursing, I think we wouldn't have been able to take advantage of that momentum. So I think things happen for a reason. Back then, when you're in that kind of situation, you it's hard to see past. But looking back at it now, I'm always, I'm extremely grateful that, he made that leap.
So I had a question earlier when you were talking about the first time you sat down with your friend when he convinced you to go into finance. Was there a specific moment or a specific thing that he told you that kind of made the light bulb go off and you're like, okay, this is it?
Yeah. For me it was.
For
But
you?
go ahead.
Well, for me, it was just so that whole night, right? Let me just paint the picture so you guys understand like how like nonchalant this was. We sit down, we meet at a Panera Bread, right? Because originally they're supposed to come to our house. I'm like, no, I'm not really cool with them. Like, why do they need to come to our house? So we meet at a Panera Bread. That's where, we have the conversation. Then we go to dinner afterwards. And that's when, and they come with us too, right? Like we had a great conversation at Panera Bread. Walls are down now, right? Guards down, have a good time at dinner. And while we're at dinner, right, I'm like, hey, Czarina asks him actually, he's like, hey, do you have plans or applications, like paper applications for those, for some of those plans you're talking about, right? So we can open one up. And he's laughing because they don't have paper applications. It's like all electronic.
2020,
right?
2019.
Yeah, this was back in 2019. So after dinner, it's already maybe like 10 o'clock at night, right? It's 10 o'clock at night. And we go back to that Panera Bread and sit outside because they're closed. So we go back to the Panera Bread, sit outside so we can use their Wi-Fi as we're sitting outside filling out applications so we can open up some, plans for ourselves. And during that whole process, me and him are talking more and he's asking me about my career as a nurse and what I, how I like it and what do I see myself doing. And that's where I tell him, it's, nursing's great, make good money. Probably not something I see myself doing forever. And honestly, all he says is, why don't you do something with me? Right? Why don't you get licensed with me and work with me on a part-time basis? I said, sure. What I got to lose? Right. And really, that's how I got started. I didn't, it wasn't anything like extravagant, like just very casual conversation. But that just small moment of time, like really changed the outlook of our life. Right. Like something that you would never think. Right.
Was there something within your own personal finances that, like, I guess was like a pain point for you guys that really maybe was the reason you guys were even there in the first place?
It was because of the want to make the change, right? So because we knew that if someone had to make some sort of change, whether going back to school, starting something, we had to figure that out first. I'm an ICU nurse. I like things. I like to know where things are gonna go.
Oh, did you look at the skin? No, I didn't look at the skin.
Right? this map on the blood pressure is one off. I needed to be limits, right? So I'm the planner. I like to make sure that things are in place, right? Which also kind of it made entrepreneurship a big learning curve for me because obviously that's not how it work, especially in the beginnings of entrepreneurship. But really, I want to go back to the first question earlier when we were talking about like what was the light bulb? When we were talking about just the fact that we were talking about our own finances, the question that was asked to us that allowed me to start thinking was because before I was just doing things blindly, max my 401k. If there was anything else left over, put it in your emergency fund or whatever, right? And just see the money grow and then cross your fingers you get to retire. And that was the advice that everybody took on from the person that had most seniority on the unit. And that was it. And the question that was asked to us during that appointment was, he asked us, he said, well, the person that's been on that unit is 70 years old. Do you want to retire early? And I said, absolutely. Get me out of there. And he said, then why are you doing what everyone else is doing if you want different results? That's the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. That was the biggest pain point for me. Was that okay? That means we have to do something different.
And was it more just like at the time, were you guys just working a lot, or did you guys like financially, were you guys in a good place? Were you guys able to save a lot of money, or did you guys have a bunch of credit card debt?
I
We
mean,
were in a
for the
good
most
place.
part, I think we were better
Okay.
than the average person when it came to finance, in terms of saving. And I mean, we were able to pay off our student loan. Both of us were able to pay off our student loans within the first two
Yeah.
years of us working,
Yeah.
right? So didn't have that, paid off that debt. We were able to travel, but still be able to save, right? Like we had decent savings, but I don't think I wouldn't say we were financially secure or we were
Independent.
independent, right? I think there was definitely a lot of work that we needed, right? A lot of things we could do differently. So yeah, I think that's where we were at the time.
I think we just wanted more.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
Yeah.
just really wanted more.
yeah.
Do you guys see with your clients now that they're more in your position, or are they more like, kind of spending money frivolously, getting themselves into credit card debt? And then when you sit down and do one of your, I guess, financial audits, what is like kind of your process, like your first three steps that you work with them on?
Yeah, it's that's why I say I think we were doing better than the average persons, because we sit down with a lot of people today and so much debt, right? Like
Yeah.
very little money left over at the end of the month. No savings, no emergency funds, like uh hardly any retirement, right? And so we see a lot of that where people really don't know what to do. Like they're just completely lost, right? And
Mhm.
that's where that financial education really comes in, just teaching them just the basics of money, right? And I think the biggest thing for us is helping people develop the right habits,
Yeah, that's the biggest
right?
thing.
Like, we have for example, that we sit down with some people that they might have a ton of credit card debt, right? And they may have the savings to pay off that debt, but for whatever reason they don't use it to pay it off, right? And they ask us, they're like, hey, should I use this to pay off my debt? And people might say, yeah, you should, right? Because you're paying all this interest on that debt, not really earning anything in your savings. But you also have to look at, okay, what are the habits? How did you get in that debt in the first place? Right? Was that a product of you just overspending, or was there just one big emergency that came up that was unexpected, or how did that come about? Because the last thing you want to do is use your savings, pay off that debt, but because you have the bad habits, you rack up the credit cards again,
Mhm.
right? So it's really about being able to help people develop the right disciplines, the right habits when it comes to finance. So when we go through like what you said, financial audit, we really look at, okay, what do the income, right? What are you bringing home every month? How much do you make for the year? What are your expenses, right? And then we go through net worth. What are your assets? What kind of savings, retirements do you have? What's your emergency funds look like? What do you have for liabilities and debts? How much do you have in there? What are the interest rates on these things, so we can help you strategize how to better manage it, right? Looking at all those things, and then the biggest thing that we do is, Zarina mentioned it earlier, is helping them build a strong financial foundation, right? And we have a step process of doing that, right? By looking at what do your protections, what's protecting your income, what's protecting your assets, your family, right? Then helping you create the debt management, the strategies with that, then helping you build the emergency funds, and then lastly is the long-term savings, the investments, right? Like tackling those. So that's kind of like the step-by-step process of what we look at to help them build a strong financial foundation,
All right, so I
right?
have a question that it's come up a few times, and I I have a different answer than a lot of other people, and I want to hear what your answer is. Should you pay off student loans first, or should you start investing just to get kind of a little bit under your belt?
It's a good question. Just from the people that I've helped out personally, I think people can do both at the same time, right? Just with the right disciplines or habits. I think people can do both, right? I think they can save because you do want to save, because one of the things about saving and growing money is you got to have time, right? You got to have time to grow that money. The other thing, with the debt, like obviously you want to pay down the debts. You don't want to have debts over your head the rest of your life. So I think there's a balance where people can do both. I think they can start saving. Doesn't have to be much, but at least start putting something away to build the habits, to build the disciplines. And then maybe we figure out a way how we can start paying down the debts quicker at the same time. Right. So I think people can do both. I don't think there's really a right or wrong answer to that. I know people may think differently, but for me, I think they can probably do both.
Yeah, I think just hearing what you guys are doing, and it's very similar to why we started this podcast in the first place, because we saw such a huge lack of financial education within the nursing community. I've worked with so many people that are just the people you're talking about, asking for advice from like the oldest person on the unit.
Yeah.
And so it's cool to hear that you guys are, so passionate about this and going out and specifically helping nurses. So I'm sure this won't be the last time we speak to you guys. Especially being that you're in the Bay Area. We'll have to.
Hope we weren't that boring where you don't want to talk to us.
You're out in Napa. You're only like half an hour away from us.
I know. I was gonna say you guys need to come up here. Yeah, come up for some wine tasting. Yeah. But no, I mean, it's cool to, I think for me, and I'm sure Josh feels the same way, but like one of the coolest things as we've been going through this podcast is just all the people we've met along the way. And I mean, it's kind of like selfishly like a great way for us to get free advice from a bunch of people. So
hey,
I mean, because to be quite honest, I mean, as we're the Investing RN podcast, we have so much to learn. So this has been a great experience for us.
So that's one of the big reasons. The other big reason is we see a lot of fake advice on social media, and we wanted to kind of counteract some of that, because a lot of people make things seem super easy, but as you guys know, not a lot of it is easy. It's just doing the same thing consistently until it works.
And I would argue that you, as the ICU nurse, Czarina, you're like the next level of business, and that's what we found. So I always say it, but I'm married to Josh's sister, and I met her in the ER, but the more I know her now, I'm like, oh, she probably should have been an ICU nurse, because she's very much the organized one. And I think it was like 2 weeks ago, we were talking about the beginnings of our business, and Josh and I are very much like James, like, let's go out and try this thing. Let's go. Well, Josh is kind of like half and half. I'm like, burn all the ships. Let's go do this thing. Josh is like, I'm going to keep my foot in the door. But
I'm with you, but I got my foot dragging behind me still.
Yeah,
for some safety.
Yeah.
But then once you build this thing, you need somebody that's got some sort of organization to actually hold it all together, and that's been Jen for us and Czarina for you. It sounds like.
Yeah,
so
that's for sure. It's what we have now and what we've been able to do and build. It definitely would not have been able to do it if it was just me. Like it would have been. It would have been way too much chaos, way too much risk. And, sometimes I act before I think, right? Which you could be a good thing, but sometimes could bite you in the butt later down the line. So just having someone like Czarina that's, kind of the opposite of what I am, it's really like a good blend and a good mix for business.
If it was just me, then nothing would be done, because I would just
exactly. You need each other.
Yeah, you need that.
I'm gonna jump to the final 5. That's the same 5 questions we ask every guest. But before I do, you have this banner up behind you. It says, what is it, 30?
It's 30 by 30 financial literacy campaign. So in our business, we are part of an organization that's a lot bigger than us. Okay, we're kind of like more of a subset of it. And the goal really is to financially educate 30 million people by 2030. So that's a lot of people. And there's a big organization that we're part of that's helping towards that. We do have a counter, and right now we're at about 2.5 million. So we've got 6 more years to go now, and I think everything is just compounding. So I'm confident that we'll get there.
Awesome. And I did see on some of your social media that you guys are very high performers in this company that you're a part of. So I don't commend you for that. That's takes a lot of work, a lot of hard work. But all right, I'll jump to this first question in the final 5. So what is a top financial resource that you found? Where do you go to educate yourself?
Where do we go to educate ourselves?
You can answer individually too if you prefer.
Yeah.
Okay. You want to go first?
This company that we're in. I don't know anywhere else that we would have been educated if it wasn't for someone reaching out to us.
Yeah.
So this is being in the financial industry, just like in healthcare, when you're in the industry is the best place to get the advice because you're in it. I think if we'd remained clients, we would have gotten an understanding of finance. But if it wasn't for us being in it, that's what completely changed the way we look at finance.
Yeah. For me, it's I'd add on to that, but more specifically, like the mentorship that we've received, the people that have 30 plus years of experience in the finance industry and what they've been able to learn, and what they know, and just giving that knowledge, passing it down to us, just so we can be more savvy with our money, right? Like that's probably the best place that we've learned. So, to help the viewers, right? Like where can you go to learn about better yourself with finance? Find someone that has a ton of years of experience in the industry, right? Learn from them, pick their brain, right?
Yeah. Or find someone that has what you want. I think the easiest way to get to where you want to go, find someone that has what you want, go pick their brain and implement.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be money. It can be the amount of free time they have or the amount of anything that they have. Yeah, just go pick their brains.
Mm-hmm.
Pick their brains.
Pick their brains.
Oh, God.
I don't think the brains is plural. I don't think it's plural. I think it's just singular brain.
I'm pretty sure Jennifer said that.
Their brain.
And now I can't not say that because Jennifer said it and I made fun of her and now it's like stuck in my head now too.
She what's that movie? Inceptioned you. The second question is, what advice would you give yourselves as new grads?
Pace yourself. There's a long way to go. You don't have to try to accomplish everything in the first year, but also know what you want.
Yeah. I'd say, you kind of took mine.
Sorry. Think of something else.
No, I'd say do what makes you happy. I think nursing, there's so many different things that you can do in nursing. It's a great career. Like, could be a very fruitful career for a lot of people. But do the things that make you happy. I know this is about like helping people find things outside, right? So if whether it's you find something in nursing that makes you happy, or if you find something outside of nursing that makes you happy, like go and pursue it, right? Or not fully pursue it, but maybe start learning a little bit more about it, right? How can you get started in something like that? Because I'll tell you, if you do something, like you're gonna be very miserable in a line of work that you hate doing or that you dread, right? Like for me, my last job as a nurse was a school nurse. And if I'm being honest, like that was the most enjoyment I had working as a nurse. And when I worked bedside, like I dreaded every single day going into bedside, right? But people, there's like this taboo, like you have to be a bedside nurse or you have to get into critical care. Like that's the top tier of nursing, right? Like ICU, ER. And so, but if that's not what makes you happy, you don't have to pursue that, right? Like go and do what makes you happy.
All right. Our third question is, what excites you about the next 12 months?
Oh my God.
Go ahead.
Thinking about it, right? I'm very excited because, we're starting to get a lot more traction and we're starting to do a lot more expanding. So we've been doing a lot of traveling all over the United States and just seeing, business compounds. And that's what excites me. And it's not just, we're not talking about just income here. We're talking about the people that we're given and we're now giving opportunities to now have the same path as we are. Being that example for them, seeing where our team is heading, the skill set that they have, the business that they have with us. That's what excites me because there's a lot of fire there's a lot of things brewing. I can't share it yet, but it's very exciting.
Stay tuned.
All right.
Yeah.
Say, go follow at Nurses in Finance.
Yeah.
And you'll be able to figure out what they're talking about.
Well, for me, it's the biggest thing I'm looking forward to is Czarina being able to quit nursing and be full time in business with me. That's the thing I'm most excited about. Secondly, I'd say is being able to see the people that we have, the agents we have within our organization, is seeing them win and the things that they're going to do with their lives the next 12 months, right? Because we see some people that they're already starting to gain some traction. A lot of these people come from nursing backgrounds, right? People that, were feeling burned out like me or wanted something different, and just seeing where they're at when they started, what they're doing now, and what they can accomplish the next 12 months, right, in business. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
So the fourth question is, how do you define success?
It's different for most people. It could mean, to me, it's not really monetary. Some people think, if success is a certain income level. For me, I think success is just finding purpose, finding fulfillment, and peace in life. Right? I think that's really what success is, at least to me.
Yeah.
If you can feel fulfilled about what you do, if you're at peace and you're able to do the things that you want to do with your life, like, to me, that's success. Right? If someone wants to, because maybe someone's definition of success is not they want to make $500,000 a year, $1 million a year, right? Maybe their definition of success is they just want to be a more present parent, right? Because maybe their parents weren't as present, right? So then that's success to them. So I think that's how I would define it. It's having that your own personal fulfillment and peace.
Steve?
Yep.
That's it. I guess to me is being able to have the freedom to be who you really want to be. I think that to me is success, because a lot of times people are they really want to be someone. They really, not someone they're not, but they really want to grow into somebody. But there's a lot of different factors that are pulling them away from it, whether it's their family, their situation, and they just can't be them. And I think my definition of success is being able to tell yourself that I can be this type of person. I can be this person without boundaries, without anyone else, without the worry of what anyone else is thinking. That to me is success.
All right, the fifth question is.
You guys stumbled a bit at the beginning, but I think you nailed
it.
Those are both.
Yeah.
You got us off guard.
We can edit out the pause.
No, don't edit the pause.
Super quick. No,
keep the pause.
They gotta know. They gotta know the pause.
You look like this.
All right. Last question is. Yeah. Last question is: what is the biggest financial mistake that you've made, and what did you learn from it?
And what we learned from it, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Biggest financial mistake. What would you say? I think for me, it's just biggest financial mistake is not getting started earlier than we did.
Yeah.
Right. We didn't really take our own personal finance or our own financial goals seriously early on in our career. And once we paid off the loans, it was free for all. Like, we're traveling, we're spending money, we're doing all these things, and probably not, you could still do those things, but maybe not as excessive as we did, where we were just spending money left and right.
Bottle service.
Maybe maybe dialing it back a little bit and actually having a strategy and a plan early on. Because I look back at it now, and when I sit down with clients who were my age or are 21 years old and they're getting started with their career and they want to be proactive with their finances and their financial future, and seeing where they can be at in the next 10, 15, 20 years, like they're so much further ahead than me and Czarina would be if we just continue doing what we're doing now, right? So that I'd say that would be our biggest financial mistake, if you will, if that it's even considered a mistake. But that's something that I've learned is just, hey, the earlier you get started, the better. It's gonna save you a lot of time, a lot more money in the long run. So that's what I would share.
Yeah. I think to me was listening without thinking, listening and implementing without thinking. I was just kind of doing what everyone else was doing. And there was no critical thinking in it. And I said, okay, this is what they're doing. I guess it's right. Let's do it. Um, Without understanding what the future really was going to look like for us. So, again, I don't think they're mistakes because you don't know they're mistakes until you find out what the right thing is, I guess. I don't know. But I know for a fact that the one good thing that we did was we finally talked to somebody who knew what they were doing. I think that's the biggest mistake that people don't do is talking to somebody that can really get them there.
And kind of saying what you said earlier is there's a lot of people that have advice. Not all of it's good advice. Make sure they're in a position that you want to be in the future.
We failed once again to keep it at a half an hour.
I was gonna say, did we
Guys,
hit
I'm
the
like,
mark? Did we hit the did we meet the goal?
I mean,
Dang.
I always think it's a good thing. So
It is. No, this is great
Yeah.
conversation.
It didn't feel like an hour
I
or
know.
however long it's
Yeah.
been.
Yeah.
Our
Right, I don't know.
our editor is gonna fire us pretty soon, but I mean, other than that, it's great.
Oh, thanks, guys.
But yeah, so
Yeah.
thanks for jumping on. And if people want to find you guys, is the best thing the Nurses in Finance on Instagram.
Yep. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right on. So
It is.
check them out, Nurses in Finance. You can find us at the Investing Around Pod and give us a subscribe and a like and all those good things. And go get financially fit.